Good evening, everyone. Do startup founders build the future rather than future being forced upon them? With this small thought, distinguished delegates, participants, and partakers, it is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of Committee on Management Accounting of ICI, along with Aurangabad branch of WIRC of ICI, who has hosted this seminar. Today, we have with us Chairman of Aurangabad branch of WIRC of ICI, CA Pankaj Soni, on behalf of the committee. Let's welcome him and request him to give his welcome address to our participants. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I welcome you all to this VCM of Management Accounting Startups and Valuations. See, startups and valuations have become a very significant part, and it's a new area, and many of there are many startups and coming up, and we see how the valuations are taking place, and how the business grows. Valuation over the period, we have seen it in many examples in past, and naturally when any such new thing comes, what compulsorily comes with that is the management, accounting, and all other related aspects. So to understand that, we have a very eminent personality and a very intelligent speaker, and our past president, CA Raghu sir, who other than him can explain all the important things, important aspects, and give a good insight on the subject. So I welcome CA Raghu sir. Over to you, Charlie.
Yeah, good evening, Pankaj. Yeah, good evening. Yeah, go ahead, Charmi. Please go ahead, Charmi.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words, and I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to past President CA Raghu for accepting the invitation and having agreed to share his knowledge on management accounting insights on startups and valuation. So it's my proud privilege having the opportunity to formally introduce him. CA Raghu sir, former President 2014-15 of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, being qualified as Chartered Accountant in 1990. He is an honorable member of Certified Public Accountants of Australia, a partner in leading firm of Chartered Accountants, specialized in taxation, audit, business, investment, and technology consulting services. During his Central Council of ICAI, he was elected as Vice President of ICAI by the Central Council on 12th Feb 2013 for the year 13-14. He was a member of Central Council of ICAI from 2007 for 3 consecutive terms. He is former director on board of Indian Overseas Bank, nominated by Ministry of Finance as an independent director. He is also a former board member advisor of International Federation of Accountants, New York. He is internationally acclaimed person. He has been member on the board of Confederation of Asia and Pacific Accountants, is a chairman of Committee on Education, Training and CPD, also technical advisor and member on the board of SAFA. He was a member of Membership Development Committee of XBRL International and chairman of XBRL India. He is a mentor of New York chapter of ICAI. He is also a member of Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, National Advisory Committee on Accounting Standard constituted by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. He is also a member of High Level Steering Committee for Implementation of XBRL, member of Working Group constituted by MCA in CSR corporate governance, etc. He is also a member of task force in MCA in regard to planned budget of ministry for the 12th five-year plan. He is also a member of technical committee on budget and accounting standards for urban local body constituted by Ministry of Urban Development. Member of Quality Review Board, member of working group constituted by RBI for addressing implementing issues for IFRS convergence for bank and empanelment statutory auditors in public sector. He is also a member of India-UK Indo-UK Task Force on Corporate Affairs constituted by the MCA and also a member of Government Accounting Standard Advisory Board for Union and State and Audit Advisory Board constituted by the Office of PNAG. With this brief introduction, I'm pretty sure that all our participants will today have a lot of takeaways and is enriched with knowledge after this completion of the event. I welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, CH Santita, for a nice introduction. Is my voice echoing?
Yes, sir. No, sir. You are audible properly.
Then, good evening to the chairman of the Aurangabad branch, CA Pankaj Soni. I've had the occasion of visiting the Aurangabad branch when I was the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. It was a very brief visit, and I came to Aurangabad in the evening and interacted with the members, and I had to leave to some other branch. Aurangabad branch is a beautiful branch. It's got a very nice branch building. I still remember. I think you have your own branch building, and the kind of teamwork what I've seen in Aurangabad branch, the participation of the past chairman of the Aurangabad branch, the participation of the members of the Aurangabad branch is something I would like to compliment the chairman, CA Pankaj Soni, Mr. Ganesh Balerao, and all the other managing committee members of the Aurangabad branch for the good work they're doing for the profession in spite of the pandemic. Because, friends, as you know, the pandemic has impacted the entire economy, and so also our profession also. But I've been given to understand that your branch has been conducting a lot of webinars for the benefit of members, conducting a lot of online programs so that they're constantly updated and they're able to upskill themselves in this, you can say, COVID times. Having said this,
Thank you for your words, sir. Thank you for your kind words.
thank you, Pankajji. And having said this, I would also like to thank Mr. Nandaji, who is not with us, our Central Council member from Delhi, who is not with us, who is the chairman of the committee, for having invited me today, for having, asked me to speak on this topic, very interesting topic, startup valuations. Because, today, the entire, what you can say, startup scenario is so hot, and people are debating, talking about startup valuations, the future of startups in India. So when Mr. Nandaji requested me that I should speak on startup valuations, valuation of startups, I accepted my invitation given by Nandaji, and now I would straight away like to go into the presentation, go to my presentation. I hope my presentation is visible to all the viewers. Tony ji,
Yes, sir.
is it fine? Yeah. So, what I would like to do maybe in the next 1 hour, 15 minutes is talk about how the startup ecosystem in India is, and how we as chartered accountants can play a very important role in supporting the startup ecosystem. And basically, it will be interactive. I've requested Charmi Shah to collate the questions and then maybe try to see how best we are able to answer to all the queries of the participants. And I'm sure, this will be a very interesting topic, a topic that is being debated in many forums. And as chartered accountants, I think it is essential for us to, keep aware that what is happening in the startup ecosystems. Friends, I come from a city like Bangalore. I was the president for the institute to the year 2014-15, and I've been very closely seeing the startup ecosystem in a city like Bangalore. If you have visited Bangalore, you'll be surprised to know the kind of growth and development the city has seen in the IT sector. We have the top multinational companies like Infosys, Wipro, TCS, a whole lot of multinational companies operating out of Bangalore. And if you see the skyline of Bangalore, the whole of Bangalore is full of IT and multinational companies. That was since liberalization, when Mr. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister of India, when Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister, when we had the liberalization sweeping across the country, that is when we saw a lot of development in a city like Bangalore. Bangalore is generally known as a sleeping city. We have all the public sector undertakings like HL, BHEL, BEL, ITI. And those days, I still remember when I was going to school, when I was going to college, I used to see this fleet of buses in the early morning at 7 o'clock or 6:30 to 7, going to ITI and all this public sector undertakings like BHEL, BEML, etc. But since then, since 70s, you can say 70 to 90 was when Bangalore was known for all the leading public sector undertakings. We have companies, institutions like ISRO also here, Indian Institute of Science. We saw the transformation taking place in the city, and 1990, thanks to the liberalization policies of the then government, we found that a lot of funds started flowing into India. A lot of multinational companies set up operations. We found that a lot of technology companies also were incorporated in India, and we have seen many success stories in a place like Bangalore since 1990. So 1990 is when the IT sector grew very fast, and the next maybe 15 years, 15 to 16 years, the IT sector did very well today. Why I'm taking a sample of Bangalore is that we have similar situations in Delhi, Calcutta, and Chennai and other major metros in the country as to how the cities have evolved over a period of time. So 1990 we had liberalization. 1990 to 2015, I could say, we saw growth in the IT industry. The IT companies were doing extremely well. They were able to, demonstrate to the world at large that they are the best in providing software solutions. They were able to clock very good turnovers. And if you see the companies, most of these companies are listed on the stock exchange, the National Stock Exchange, and the Bombay Stock Exchange. And we find that the kind of valuations what these software companies are having are extremely good. And it's no doubt the fancy of the investors to invest in the tops of the IT companies. That's because they've appreciated very well. A company like Infosys, a person who was invested in Infosys in 1990 and today, the kind of appreciation is mind blowing. So what I would like to say is that investor wealth has increased by investing in these IT companies. And of course, multinational companies operate through their private limited companies. They're privately placed. It's not available to the public. But the IT sector, opened up to the IPOs, and then many investors have invested in these software companies, and they've seen excellent results. Then from 1990 to 2015, when the IT companies stabilized, they were able to do a lot of software exports. They gained global recognition. We found that the employment opportunities also increased for software professionals across the country. And in a city like Bangalore, maybe more than 5 to 6 lakhs IT professionals are working here. We have some of the best engineering colleges in Bangalore. We have IIT in places close to Bangalore, and we find the top, technology brains specializing in the field of artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, analytics, working here. As a result of which, we found that the company started hiring engineers, and today we could say that the IT sector has stabilized very well. 2015 was when we started seeing startups. Of course, as chartered accountants, all of us are closely associated with the startup ecosystem. So today, more than 50,000 startups have been recognized by the department, which comes under the Ministry of Trade and Commerce. There's a specific department, DPIIT, which registers startups across the country. But in addition to this, there are a lot of startups that are not registered. In a city like Bangalore itself, there are more than 2 lakh startups which are not registered. And if you take a country like India, maybe there'll be about 10 to 12 lakh startups which have not been registered. But yes, registering the startups would be a good idea because they'll be entitled to government grants, subsidies from the government. They can avail of the schemes, that will be announced by the government. And we see more and more startups are now registering with this particular ministry in the Ministry of Commerce. So what I would suggest is most of us being practicing chartered accountants, if a startup client comes to you, you should guide them to, get themselves registered with the Ministry of Commerce and Finance. That's very, very important. And as I said, 15 to 21, we have seen so many startups. And India currently houses the third largest startup ecosystem. If you have traveled to US, you will find that in the Bay Area, San Francisco, a whole lot of startups are there, extremely successful startups. And many of the companies which started small have grown very big. Companies like Facebook, Twitter, all these companies are very small. They've become very big. And of course, that's a big hub, the Bay Area in the United States of America. Then, as I told you, India is having the third largest startup ecosystem. So, and when it comes to the purchasing power parity, I think we are the third largest. That is because of the improving purchasing power of the young generation. I'm sure even in places like Aurangabad, a lot of industries are providing employment to youngsters. Today, a young CA, the moment he qualifies, he gets a pay package. Those days when I qualified in the year 1990, I think Sony would agree with me, he would have passed maybe 10, 15 years back. Things were very different. All of us used to get into practice. Getting into a job was not a luxury because the pay packages were ridiculous. In 1990, I still remember the pay package, the average pay for a young CA would be 5 to 7,000 rupees. And it was not very attractive because IT industry was not there in 1990. We had only the public sector undertakings, we had banks, and we had limited number of private companies. So getting into a job was not a great thing for a chartered accountant. But today, if you look at it, 95% of the young CAs qualifying are getting into industry. They're getting an average pay package of 9 to 12 lakhs. If you have seen the campus interviews conducted by the institute recently, we have seen the pay packages are something around 9 to 12 lakh rupees. So as a result of which, we find that the purchasing power of the youngsters, not only our CA professionals, whether it's engineers, doctors, have increased. The new generation is spending more. The moment they get their first salary check, they sign up for a car. Those days we could never afford a car. The moment we qualified, we had to wait for 5 to 7 years to even think of buying a car. We were still going around, in two-wheelers. But today, what I've seen, many of the students passing out from my office, the moment they get an offer, the moment they start working, the moment they get the first month check, they go for a car. So things have changed, and maybe after 1 or 2 years, they sign up for a house. So today, the purchasing power of the youngsters has increased compared to what it was when we were young. When we were young in 1990, when I qualified. So India is having the third largest in the world by way of purchasing. So the purchasing power of the people have increased, whether to go for cars, whether to go for, apparel, whether to do a foreign travel. Foreign travel was, we used to do foreign travel maybe after 15 years after we qualified, but today everyone is traveling in the first year of qualifying as a CA. So this shows that the purchasing power parity has increased. Chartered accountants, engineers, professionals, architects, everyone is earning well. And this has created a lot of demand for, many companies. And that is where I see many of the startups in the country have been successful because of the huge population in our country and the improved purchasing capacity of the young professionals or business people, whatever it is. And as I said, India has a huge diversity in culture, language, ethnicity, and religion. And of course, it's a blessing and a curse. But I think more of it's a blessing because startups are looking at big numbers, and we find that they've been extremely successful. Pankaj, I think you would agree with me that today all of us around the country are eyeing on the unicorns. What is unicorn? What do you mean by unicorn? Startup? So any company that reaches a valuation of $1 billion is called as a unicorn. $1 billion is 100 crore rupees, 100 crore dollars. So imagine, if you convert into rupees, how big it is. And today we have almost 70 unicorn startups. As of today, as we are discussing, we have come across almost 70 unicorn startups extremely successful. And only this year, this pandemic year itself, because last year was beginning of this year, we had the second wave. We saw the impact it had on the economy. Many sectors of the economy didn't do well. We found that the demand was impacted, and in spite of that, we found that 40 new unicorns entered the unicorn club, and the list is increasing very fast. Today, more and more companies are joining the unicorn club. So, if you ask me what are the companies that have joined the Unicorn Club in 2021, Bharat Pay, Cred today making payments on your credit card is so easy. Let us say you have credit cards in Citibank, SBI, HDFC. You want to know which is to be paid. You get a communication from each of the banks. Sometimes you miss them out because you scroll them on your mobile phone, and sometimes you have seen the particular message, and then you think that let me pay later, but you forget to pay. Cred has become very handy, where it aggregates all your credit card payments and sort of gives you a prompt that yes, you have to pay. Meesho, Farmeasy. I think Farmeasy became very popular with the pandemic. During the pandemic, many people used to find it difficult to go and shop for medicines, and that is when Farmeasy came with the concept of delivering medicines to the doorsteps, and they were able to build a huge customer base, because most of these startups look at building a huge customer base. They don't look at generating revenues. They creating profit. They look at creating a massive customer base. Then there was ShareChat, Vedantu, again educational, startup. Vedantu became very popular. Lyceus, Cardeco, Upstocks, and so many new startups have entered the Unicorn Club in 2021. And friends, if you see the success stories of this unicorn, I think whenever you find time, you should read the success stories of these unicorns. They've all taken a lot of time to come to this stage. It's not that they've become popular overnight. They've come out with a good, brilliant idea, and they're able to, make it a success. So unicorn startups are something that we need to understand how they are working and what is happening. The new concept now is known as Decacorn. What do you mean by Decacorn? It's a business which is valued at more than 10 billion. 10 billion means, 1,000 crore dollars. 10 billion US dollars is nothing but 1,000 crore US dollars. Very, very big. And 38 private startups this year attained Decacorn status globally. I'm talking about around the world, and most of them are fintech startups. This is something which is good for our profession, because in fintech companies you find a lot of CAs are involved in what you can say, running this startup, fintech startup, because all these fintech companies require CAs who can work in the back end, who can work around all the applications that can be offered by the fintechs. And I see a huge opportunity for our profession in the fintech space. And if any of the young CAs are looking for some opportunities, yes, they should look at an opportunity in the fintech space. And today, there are 38 companies that have attained Decacorn status globally, and that is almost 4% of the total number of unicorns around the world. So this is something, a game where the companies moving to unicorn, and from unicorn they're moving to Decacorns. So if you ask me which are the firms in India which have achieved the the Decacorn status, I think it's Byju's 21 million, Paytm 16 billion. Both of them are extremely successful. I think if you have seen Byju, when Shah Rukh Khan started advertising for Byju's, we were all wondering how this company could do. They are in the education training space, whether people would register with them, whether they'll be burning cash and losing a lot of money. But the pandemic did bring about a big change. When the schools, colleges were closed, that is when Byju's enlarged its huge student base. And when I started interacting with many of my relatives, my colleagues, my family members who have small children, when I was talking to them how online training is happening in the schools, the mixed was not it was the response was mixed. Some of them said the online training is okay. Some of them said it's not very good. Some of them said it's very good. Some subjects are good. So we found that the experience of the students, both the college students and the school students, were not up to the mark. And that is when Baiju came out with standardized material, well-researched material. Experts were written the material, and this was available on a online mode. People could register it, and students could sort of prepare for the exams, prepare for all the tests at their convenience. And along with a registration, a company like Baiju used to give a iPad also. Passing the registration is about 65,000 rupees for 1 year course. They used to give an iPad to the student, and the learning was exciting. I've personally seen the classes, that online class are very good. So we found that more and more students, wanted to shy away from online coaching from the institution, and they started supplementing, like how we used to go for tuitions those days for mathematics or statistics. People started subscribing for Byju's, and today I'm sure Charmi or Shah also would agree with me that many young students who are studying 8th standard, 9th standard, 10th standard, then studying in professional courses are taking up all this course online courses. Even in the CA course, those days when we were doing CA, we used to attend the coaching classes conducted by the institute. Then some of them used to attend the coaching classes conducted by private academies, because we found that they were more intensive compared to the institute. And then institute also, sort of leveraged on technology. When I was a president in 2014-15, since I was from Bangalore, I thought we should leverage on technology. And today, I'm very happy to say that all the course content of the foundation IPCC final is available on an online mode. A student who's sitting in any corner of the country, whether they're sitting in Kanyakumari down south or let us say Shimla up north, can access the cloud campus of the institute, download the online lectures, and without attending any tuitions can prepare for the CA exam. So online education has become a big success, and companies like Baiju leveraged on the the COVID impact, and today we find that these companies are growing very fast. When you talk about Paytm, what do you think about Paytm? Paytm also is another success story. You go to the market, you have a pani puri, you want to pay, you don't have change, you use your Paytm. You want to hire a auto rickshaw, want to hire a cab, you use Paytm. You use Paytm for buying vegetables, buying juice, buying an ice cream. It becomes so convenient. The hassle of pulling out money, giving to him. Sometimes you forget to collect the change. Sometimes shopkeeper says, I don't have change. All this has been done away with, and Paytm has revolutionized the whole market today. Even small vendors selling tea, coffee on the roadside, vendors selling tender coconuts or vegetables have put up this Paytm say, um, the code where you scan the QR code. This one is the QR code. You just go have a tender coconut and show the QR code on your mobile phone, and you can make the payment. It becomes so easy. And initially, even we used to not use Paytm, but today even I am extensively using Paytm and PhonePe, and all these apps have become very popular. Why I'm trying to explain to you, friends, about the success of these two companies is that these companies moved from unicorn to decacons, and way forward they will grow much bigger. That is because if you look at Paytm, when the acceptance was there, even by shopkeepers, small shopkeepers on the roadside, that means to say that yes, they found merit in this particular app. And today we find housewives, students are at ease when they are making payments on Paytm. Coming to a startup, what exactly a startup would mean? Let us say two or three of us get together, Charmi, Shah, myself, and let us say Pankaj, Soni get together. We have a brilliant idea. We'll say, let's build a startup. So the idea might be floated by any one of us, and then we all meet, get together in a cafe, or maybe get together in a house, in one of our residences, and say, why don't we do a startup? Why don't we build a company? And if the idea is good, we all the three of us feel yes, let's brainstorm and come out with this particular app, which will benefit the society at large. That is when the idea germinates. So three like-minded entrepreneurs, three like-minded academicians, three like-minded people get together, exchange ideas, and they decide, let's go about implementing this particular idea. And then the next step is planning. Okay, the idea is good. Now how do we go about it? How shall we get started? That is when the planning would start. Do you think this product or a service would sell? Who are our competitors? Whether we be able to break even? What is the kind of investments we require? So a lot of planning is required. So you need to put everything on, on paper and try to work out whether your long-term plans or short-term plans, what is the investment that is required, when will the product be rolled out, what is the kind of customer base you will have. All that is very important. Teamwork. If you have seen the success of any startup, it's just not one individual. It's a group of individuals getting together, and then they build the entire startup. And absolute teamwork is required at all levels, whether it's the management level, middle management level, and the junior management level. Teamwork is very critical. And for a startup to be successful, teamwork is very, very critical. That is something which we need to keep in mind. And when startups come to you for advice, you need to tell them the importance of having the right team. You need to guide them, you need to mentor them, you need to tell them as to how they can go on building a good team. Then the next thing is investments. Yes, for anything you require money. Without money you can't do anything. So what do we do? Myself, Charmi, and Pankaj Soni decide, chalo, let's start the business. Let's float a company, and after floating a company, let's try to invest. Each one of us might decide to invest, let us say, 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs each. That is known as bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is nothing but investing your own funds. So this funds is out of your savings. You borrow from your parents, you borrow from your friends. But let us say all the three of us decide to invest 10 lakh rupees. That becomes the basic, what you can say, investment in the startup. But as you know, bootstrap startups cannot survive for long. One thing in startups you need to keep in mind is that startups do not have a long shelf life. The shelf life is very less. If you see, many of the startups die a very quick death, and we find that only the good ones, which have deep pockets, are able to manage the companies well, are able to get investment from outside. They are able to continue for a long time. So, what is very important is that when you decide, or the clients coming to you want to form a startup, you need to tell them that they need to attract the right kind of investments. Initially, they can bootstrap, that is their own funds. Then they can go to the next step, take loans from their friends. They can reach out to banking institutions, and banks do not lend to startups. I have been a director of a nationalized bank, Indian Overseas Bank, for a period of 3 years. I was appointed by the Ministry of Finance. Even though we have specialized scheme for startups, until and unless we get a security, we don't fund startups. Banks advance money to startups only on the basis of security. If you want money without security, you have to go for schemes that is launched by the government of India. Nationalized banks, in principle, just don't lend without any security. So the startup promoters should be aware of the challenges what they have in raising funds. So the banks don't lend, the financial institutions don't lend. So where is the fund? Either they have their own funds, borrow from their parents, borrow from their well-wishers, friends, etc., and that's how they begin with. And then once they borrow the funds, they need to build the product or the service and demonstrate to an external investor that this is my company, this is what we do, this is our business plan, this is our financial model, and if you invest, we are very confident that in a period of 5 years, your investment will become 3 times or 4 times. You are able to convince an investor, and the investor is convinced about your idea, then he will, come for funding. That's what we see in the paper. Initial round, the first round, the second round, and third round, you get funding from external investors. in different, you can say, phases. So getting investments is not easy until and unless your startup is a very good project. You will not get any investments. It's not very easy to get investments. Then coming to the trends, as a startup, we need to understand the trends that is happening in the market today. When you talk about retail, apparel, whether people are buying online or whether people like to go to the showroom and buy. When you're talking about beauty products, whether it's lipsticks or face creams, whether the current generation girls would still prefer to buy it online, or they would like to go to a store and do a check and then buy it. These are the trends that you need to understand. Traditionally, we have always been thinking that buying in the marketplace is fun because you can experience the product, you can visit multiple stores, and then you can decide. Because online, you end up buying something and you don't like it and you return it. All this takes a lot of time. But during the pandemic, we found that online shopping increased. But nevertheless, after the pandemic reduced, we found that the people still like to go for shopping to Connaught Place or Karol Bagh and feel the product and pick up the stuff of their choice. So the startup promoters should understand and study the trends. Very important for them to study the trends. If they are building an app for the retail space, for retail of apparel, they should study the trends. If they are building an app for the financial services space, they should study the trends. Like for example, Policy Bazaar that deals in selling insurance policies. Traditionally, all of us have insurance agents coming to you. He might be your uncle, he might be related to you, might be a good friend selling a medical insurance or a life insurance. But today, Policy Bazaar has changed the dynamic. You just go online, you give your age, give your wife, tell you what is it you're looking at. He'll give you so many options. Everything comes online within a span of 10 minutes. You can decide how much to invest, which company, which insurance company to invest. These are the changing trends that are taking place, even in insurance buying. Even for booking a non-ticket air ticket, you used to go to the travel agent, but today everything happens online. At the click of a button, you're able to book the tickets of your choice, and the tickets are delivered instantaneously. The moment you book, make the payment, the tickets are given to you online. So the trends you need to study. Resources. I've already said this. When we talk about resources, it does not mean only financial resources. It also involves HR resources, human resources. Human resources are very critical in a startup because people will join you only if you assure them of a good salary. And many a time we find that startups do not have money to pay that kind. Let us say I'm working for a company like Infosys as a software engineer, and I'm getting ₹1,00,000 a month. And if I have to join a startup, until unless they offer me 1 lakh, I would not be willing to quit the job in Infosys. So startups have to pay high salaries to the promoters and to the senior management level. So human resources are very expensive, and that is when the startups are not able to sustain after a period of 2 to 3 years. Whatever funds they have, whatever funds they have borrowed will be inadequate, and they're not able to pay the salaries and retain the talent. Because if you do not retain the talent, you will not be able to develop the products or services. Then the next is the strategy. How do you grow your business? Yes, you have the funds, you have the ideas, you have the resources, and now what is the business strategy? How do you grow the business? How do you tackle competition? How do you go about making a project a success? Is a strategy for which you need to brainstorm, discuss with various stakeholders, customers, competitors, and try to understand what the strategy you should have. Strategy would mean, for example, today OTT. You look at OTT platform. Strategy is they want more and more subscriptions. They don't want to charge you for every movie. Whereas if you look at Tata Sky, they charge you for every channel. But if you look at OTT, unlimited number of movies you can download and watch. You just pay a subscription model. And today OTT platforms have more subscribers compared to Tata Sky. So that's a business strategy. So the business strategy would be dependent on the technology you're using and the development that is taking place in offering the services to the clients. Coming to the product, whether it's a product or a service, that is a final product. Let us say if your startup is offering a service, like for example, Ola, Uber, you download the app and then everything is, can order for the cabs. Whether it's Swiggy, you can order food online. Dunzo, you can send your delivery of your products to one customer to any other place. So these are all services that are being offered. by the startup. So, startup, when you talk about it, it starts with ideas, planning, teamwork, investments, trends, resources, strategy, and coming out with the right product. Friends, having said this, we need to understand how the digital revolution is helping the startups. Today, the whole change that is taking the digital technology has brought about a big change in how people and business work together. Work from home is a common thing today. Ordering online food has become very common. Sending goods and services to other people using Dunzo is common. Hailing an auto or a thing by Ola, Uber is common. Swiggy, identifying a good restaurant around you using Swiggy. So all of us are, reading newspapers on the e-newspapers on the mobile apps. So entire digital technology has brought about a change the way businesses are being conducted and the way people are consuming the products and services. So what is happening is because of this change, every business has to change itself to the changing customer. Those days we always used to get newspaper like in Bangalore. We have Deccan Herald is a very popular newspaper. We all used to read the newspaper every day, go through. But today, when I asked my son and daughter why you are not reading the newspaper, they said, "Daddy, it is not required. We're getting all the news instantaneously on the mobile phone." And it's so true. They don't feel the need of a newspaper itself. So there's a changing need of the customer. Today, because of digital technology, the customer's expectation has changed. You'll be surprised when demonetization was announced. It was my son who told me, "Daddy, Modi has announced demonetization." He was the one to first tell me. He had the information on his mobile phone, and immediately the moment he saw it, he told me. So youngsters like Charmi Shah, all of them will have different ways of ordering for products, services, using them. So the startup should understand the customer's expectation. They can't just stick to people like us who are old. We're all 55, 56 years myself. So, our tastes are all outdated. So they have to study the youngsters' preferences. What are the youngsters preferring today? So, and today what I see is the change. It's blurring the boundaries between the physical and digital world. People are still okay to buy mobile phones online. They're still okay to buy TVs online. Okay to buy vegetables online. Can you ever imagine your mother buying vegetables online? But today, all the young housewives are buying it online. Groceries online. You don't want to move out of the home. So the whole boundaries of the physical and digital world is getting blurred. So it is here the startups are playing a very important role in this evolution, and we find that large companies are transforming the way transactions are happening, business transactions are happening. So you find the changes taking place in the health sector. We talked about PharmEasy and various other apps. Like for example, you have this very popular app Practo that fixes an appointment for you for a doctor in your area, whether you want a skin doctor, whether you want a any doctor, whether you want a physician, and you can also fix up a video consultation to the doctor because of the pandemic, many doctors stopped seeing patients. So in the health space, we saw a lot of apps. Tourism, Make My Trip, all of them became so popular. People used to book online tickets, book resorts, get a lot of booking, all hotels at a concessional price. Industry, we saw industry started using the apps. Education training, as I said, we already discussed about Baiju, Vedantu. City and mobility, Ola, Uber. Agriculture, yes, many agricultural products are available online. Commerce like tie, shoes, your socks, everything, your shirts, all your thing was available online. Banking, insurance, just now I told you about the Policy Bazaar, then I talked about how HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak Bank have brought about a big change in the nationalized bank. Today, I bank with SBI, and I've also been the director of Indian Overseas Bank. I've seen how banks very quickly transformed and started offering online banking, mobile banking to the customers. Today, at the ease of a press of a button, you can transfer funds, you can using NEFT or whatever, RTGS. Things have become so easy. You can buy policies online, you can renew your car insurance, scooter insurance, everything online, thanks to the digital revolution. And this is where the startups have played a very, very important role. Friends, one thing I can say is the pandemic has given a big push to this, and they the changing preferences of customers and even the senior people at home have understood that yes, it's much easier to buy it online. And the digital revolution has given has been given a big push during the pandemic. People were more comfortable paying online, ordering on things happened that way. So, according to a research conducted by the MIT Center for Digital Business, companies that apply digital transformation are 26% stronger than the competitors and have a 12% higher growth. Traditional businesses have to change. If selling silk sarees, they also should create an online platform. For some reason, the customer is not able to go to the shop. They should be able to see the sarees online and buy it. So the companies that are applying digital information are growing faster, and the growth factor is also very high. So what I'm trying to say is that digital revolution has brought about a big change. They're all talking about fintech. What exactly fintech means? Fintech is using technology to enable financial services. Financial services and and technology getting together. So it has helped the personal finance. Today you can take personal loans on the mobile phones. You can you can get a personal loan. And then consumer banking, as I said, you can make remittances. You can issue what you can say make FDs. All this possible on your mobile phones. Even lending is happening on the mobile phone. So fintech is a new feature now. Digital currency and e-wallets have become very popular. All of us have Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, and all of them. And as I told you earlier, this has become accepted mode of payment. Portfolio management today, you're able to transact on the stock market. Stock markets are doing extremely well, and youngsters who are working in software companies today are preferring to invest in financial assets. So they're buying and selling stocks online, and portfolio management is so easy using your mobile phone. So fintech has given big push for portfolio management, stock market trading, as I told you, buying and selling of shares. A lot of white collared employees today, or the software employees, are into stock market trading, because as practicing chartered accountant, when we file the returns, we realize that they are doing a lot of trading thanks to the annual information system that has been introduced by the government of India in the new tax portal. All the share transactions, whatever they're doing, comes earlier they never used to disclose it to us, but today everything is getting captured. So we find a lot of youngsters into stock market trading, online insurance, which I said, policy bazaar, invoicing, and tax computing. Everything is becoming automated. Even in our profession, lot of portals have come out where portals like ClearTax, where tax returns can be filed online. Very easy. They just have to key in all the information and the returns are being filed. So basically, a lot of innovations have happened, and we find that these innovations would continue to grow. Coming to government incentives, Charmi is sitting at Delhi. She knows, how the government initiatives would help the um, startups. Because for any government initiatives, you have to reach out to Delhi. That's something which the government should think of decentralizing it. And the government is keen to build a strong ecosystem, for a startup ecosystem, for the growth of startup business. They want to drive like a growth, generate. See, if you look at employment opportunities in the startups, I think all of you would agree with me. A company like Dunzo or a company like Swiggy has provided employment to so many unemployed youths in our country. They just need to have a bike. If they're able to have a bike, they can log in part time. Let us say they're working from morning 10 to 6. They can work from 6:30 to 10:30, or morning 7 to 9. With Swiggy, they can on to that and do some few deliveries and earn a few thousands of rupees every month. So employment opportunities have increased. A lot of uneducated guys are now having gainful employment just by having a mobility, that is a bike. So the government is trying to do a lot of things. They are simplifying the regulations. They're trying to make compliance easy during COVID. They simplified the compliance in the GST Act. They brought in a lot of new regulations. Income tax exemptions are being given to startups. Incubation facilities are being created. Let us say you want an office space, creating. And then they're also giving faster exit for startups. Someone wants to close a startup they're able to do it without much headache. And the Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, the corpus of 945 crores to provide financial assistance has been initiated, but this is not sufficient. But yes, those of the startups who are interested to get financial assistance can look up the website for these schemes. Government is keen to encourage startup because startup is the most happening sector in the country today. This is exactly the new startup policy. Tax exemption, as I said, exempt from income tax for any 3 years over the initial 5 year period. So in a block of 5 years, they can choose which 3 years they want to get tax exemption. Then the government proposed to build and improve innovation centers, incubators to house startups. Then funding support 10,000 crores corpus through funds of fund and 5,000 crore credit guarantee. Public sector procurement, government proposed to remove the prior experience and turnover eligibility conditions. They're trying to make it simpler. Mobile app registration, entrepreneurs can register startups through mobile. So easy. If you want to register on the government startup scheme, you can do it on the mobile. Simplified, they can legally wind up within 90 days. Self certification for 9 labor and environment laws through startup mobile app. And subsidy up to 80% on the cost of filing for patents, IPs, and trademark. So these are all the policy changes the government has brought about to make it easy for startups to register, to exit, to carry out business, to get claim tax exemptions. What is it we can do? Yes, startup is an exciting space. Government is supporting it. A lot of new startups are coming. What is it you and me as chartered accountants could do? Yes, we could help startups in a very big way. Valuation, no doubt, is one area. We can help them in business and strategy planning. We talked about strategy, talked about how to develop business. We can help them to build a revenue model. We can help them to build a business module. We can help them prepare a business plan. We can incorporate a business for the startup. We can suggest whether to go for LLP, whether to go for a private limited company, whether to go for a partnership. So you can help the startups when they come to you for incorporating the business. You can help them in accounting and finance, payroll processing, filing with the register of companies, GST returns, TDS returns, all the statutory compliance. You can help them, and you can handle the finance function for the CFO. And today we find that a lot of chartered accountants are offering services in this space. In a city like Bangalore, most of the CAs are offering this to startups, and they pay a good retainership fee for you to begin with. So there's plenty of opportunities for chartered accountants in the startup ecosystem. And yes, definitely, valuation also can be a big opportunity for the CAs. Impact of COVID-19 on startups, as you all know, COVID has impacted the overall investment sector, and even startups have been impacted because many people became cautious whether they should invest in the startups, and many startups could not raise funds. Many startups had to close operations, and we found that the number of startups which are closing increased during the pandemic. And today, only the educational, medical services, gaming, these startups, had high traction, and the other startups went slow. But they're all temporary transition period, and we'll find that more and more companies will come out of it and move to other sectors. Coming to how COVID has impacted startups, because of COVID, as I told, some of them like Pharmacy, Zomato, PhonePe did well, but some of them were not able to. Gaming industry went into a lot of challenge because of many high court decisions in various states where they said gaming is gambling, so you can't do. Streaming services, essential services, all delivery, all this became declined during the COVID lockdowns. But yes, some of the startups which have not taken the blow of COVID, Byju's, Zomato, Ola, Pharmacy, Dream11, Swiggy, PhonePe, which we discussed in detail earlier. So all these companies have not taken the impact of COVID. Coming to the valuation, how exactly we go about valuation a startup? Actually, it's very difficult to value a new venture that's not listed. And valuing a company which is not listed, it's not easy. It's very, very difficult for anyone to value, even for a valuation professional. He'll find it difficult to value startups. So because they need to understand the business model, they need to go deep dive into the financial model, and the valuers have to understand what is the choice of the entrepreneur, whether they've taken money to grow fast with more risk, or take money later and grow slow. but with the risk of complex takeover. So the value, if you are as a chartered accountant, you are a registered valuer. If you want to value a startup, you need to understand the mindset of the promoters also. Talking about valuation, so it all depends on what stage the startup is. So it's very important if you are asked to value a startup, at what stage the startup, whether it's initial stage, whether the product and service is developed, whether it's matured enough to go to the market. And once you decide as to what stage the company, it becomes easy for you to value the startups. Early stage startup, this stage begins with a potentially scalable idea for a product or service targeting a market that is poised to generate value. That is, many of the startups are early stage in India. They just have an idea for a product or a service. They're targeting a specific market, but they've not been able to get the numbers and not been able to see success. Growth stage, most of them are venture funded because they see a great potential. They know that the companies can do well and they will be able to achieve the targets and the milestones easily. These are the growth stage companies. Late stages where the companies are already funded and they have secured Series A funding, and now they want to exit. They want to make their money and come out. Maybe invested for 4 to 5 years, like how you saw Paytm. They with the investors disinvested their money in the public issue. Something very similar to that. Late stage is something where the companies which have initially funded the startups would like to come out. So what is it if you are appointed as a valuer? If Charmi Shah is the registered valuer under the IVO of the ICI, what is it she should do? She should conduct a very impartial, true and fair value of any asset that has to be valued. Today, valuation, as Sony said, is highly debatable. People are questioning the valuation of Paytm because after the IPO, Paytm was listed way below the issue price. So people are asking how the valuation was done, whether the valuation was fair. So if Charmi Shah is a valuer, he should exercise due diligence while performing the valuation service as a valuer, because the entire society is trusting on your valuation. Investors are trusting your valuation. The regulators are trusting it. So you have to exercise complete due diligence. Um, um, and then should not undertake valuation of any assets in which he, as a direct or indirect interest, or becomes fluent. If Charmi Shah has got an interest in any particular undertaking, he should not take up that, and she should do the valuation as per the valuation standards that have been given. So the responsibility of the valuer is extremely onerous. When you look at the global methods of valuation, cost approach, every dollar you spend may or may not create an equal dollar of value. Market approach, are there comparable companies similar to that? And income approach, are there current revenues or projection? But if you look at India, maybe the market approach and income approach are more popular. Coming to valuation, why startups have to be valued? That might be the question that everyone would like to know. If you see why, if let us say I'm an entrepreneur, I'm running an industry, I would like to know what is the value of my company so that I can unlock a portion of my equity of the company. So many entrepreneurs who have put in about 20, 25 years would like to unlock the business value because the next generation is not interested in taking care of their business. So they would think, why don't I exit and make my money? So you find a lot of private limited companies, small and medium enterprises want to unlock their capital. Then we have investors like me, or let us say like Pankaj Soni would like to invest and make a quick return, like how many invested in the Paytm IPO and they wanted to make a listing gain. Then we have bankers. Bankers would keen to know the value of the startup so that they can lend. Venture capitalists, no doubt, they don't insist on any asset, but yes, they would like to know what is the value of this company. So the first thing, if your client wants funding, the venture capitalist will say, please get it valued. So the venture capitalists would want it, the bankers would want it, the investors would want it, entrepreneurs would want it, seed fund managers. Let us say the managers, the seed fund managers would also like to know the value of the investment bankers. So these are some of the people who would be interested in valuation. So valuation is a very very tricky game, and it's very much essential that all the stakeholders in the valuation are happy with the valuation and they feel that the value has done properly. Due to the COVID, we find that the startups now are in desperate need of funding and there are less investors are willing to invest because of so many uncertainties. Now we have the Omicron, we don't know whether that will be the third wave, whether it'll stop. Even if you go to social gatherings today, people are a little afraid. So naturally, when investors want to invest in startups, they would like to see what will be the effect of Omicron, the third wave. So they say that even healthy startups, the valuations would drop by 30%. And today, all the equity and debt holders are keen to understand the risks and return. Management team and investors to take informed decisions. Organizations still need reliable value to fulfill the revenue. So what is happening is a lot of caution in the entire startup space because of the uncertainties. What is that? But nevertheless, I think I'm a positive guy. I'm optimistic. I see a bounce back for all of them, and way forward, we'll see more and more companies, startups doing well. Then, but nevertheless, investors, let us say Sony wants to invest 100 crores or 50 crores, he will think twice. He will say, let me wait, let me see whether the new virus is creating trouble, whether the malls will be closed, whether the customers will stop traveling. So he'll have that wait and see approach. So once you have the investors have a wait and see approach, the entire investment gets derailed by 2 to 3 months. So that is what is the biggest drawback because of COVID. And until there's some stability in the market, investors are not ready to invest money. The 3 rupee that they would like to invest, they would like to get a return out of it. So if they find there's no stability in the market because of COVID, they will not invest. Then investors will also look, to leverage on a sharp drop in value, get their hands on it and sale. There are also certain kind of investors, like in the stock market, you have the bulls and the bears. Similarly, even in startup space, there might be investors who would like to invest in startups which are currently not doing well because of pandemic, but they see a good future. So this is something which we need to keep in mind. What are the challenges in valuation of startups? Let us say a startup comes to Mr. Sony, and Mr. Sony, as a practicing chartered accountant, needs to value the startup. What exactly he has to do? Most of the companies that come to you, we find that are new. They don't have prior data about the company, and valuing such companies in the early life cycle is very difficult. How can you value a company which is so new and the product or the service is so new when there are no similar companies in the market? When you find that data is not available, reliable data is not very difficult for you. It's a big challenge for you when you value the startup. Over optimistic view of the founder. Like Pankaj would find that the clients who come to him to getting their startup valued always have very aggressive forecasts of sales. They would like to get a very good value for their company. So when they project the sales, they project higher figures. When they project their expenditure, they project lower expenditure, so that they are able to show a very attractive picture to the investor. So you should be careful about that. You should not get carried away by the aggressive projections. You should do your due diligence and decide whether to accept the projection. You should challenge them, you should question them, and find out whether they've done it right. And in majority of the startups, you find that the revenues are small or non-existent. You'll be surprised. We also are into valuation of startups. We find that in our office, when we want to value the startups, we find that hardly they have any revenues. We want a valuation to be done. They do not have an established business model. They've yet to develop a client base. They do not have a very popular product or a service market fit. But yes, they want to get a. So this is when the challenge is for you. Survival of startups. An IBM Institute study finds that 90% of will fail in the first phase of inception, and it becomes necessary for the value to understand the future market and the future performance. So as I said earlier, it's absolutely essential for you to see whether this startups can survive, because most of them would fail. Illiquid investments. Investments in a startup usually lacks liquidity, as it is difficult to exit from investment made in startup unless until it has a very promising business model and proven track record. So even let us say you invest 10 crores, you're not sure whether you can exit out of that investment and you can come out it and make your money. So it is absolutely essential that if a survival of the startups we have to see that whether the startup can survive, and if investors are investing in a startup, they have to see whether they could exit from the investment. And many of times we find that coming out of the startups is difficult. Coming to valuation of intangibles, I think today brands are big. When we talk about brand, we talk about Starbucks as a brand. When you talk about Tanishq as a brand, when you talk about Titan as a brand, value is huge. Then goodwill, patents, trademarks, they're all intangible assets. But we all have seen Kingfisher Airline, how the brand was valued at a fancy figure. And all of us have seen how Kingfisher had to be grounded. They're not in a position to pay salaries to the pilots. They're not in a position to pay salary to the ground staff. They could not settle their aviation fuel bills. They could not settle the bills with the airports. And we found that the airline was grounded. But they were able to raise money successfully from an IPO. And they had given very, what you can say, ridiculous valuations, because the company that valued Kingfisher valued the brand at a very, very fancy figure. Valuation of intangibles is very important. So one thing we need to keep in mind is that when a startup approaches you, you need to see whether the brands do the brand valuation. You follow the standards laid down by the institute. Factors to be considered in valuation of startups, as I said, when you have to see the financial records, how well they are maintained, whether the records that are maintained are adequate, whether they're following the reporting requirements of the Companies Act, whether they are accurate, whether they are genuine, very important. Number two is the management experience. What is the experience of the management, the managing director, whether he's got prior experience, whether he's got capability, whether he's got higher education, is a reputed institution, is something which you should see management experience. And then what has been the frequency of capital infusion? Because capital will be infused at different stages, you need to see the frequency. Then coming to the pre-valuation revenues, before the value valuation exercise, what are the revenues? What would be the revenues way forward? What are the distribution channels, whether it's direct marketing, whether it's online marketing, or whether it's through brick and mortar stores, something we should study. Industry, the tourism industry, or the retail industry, or aviation industry. You need to study the industry. You need to understand how the industry is working over last so many decades. Market conditions, competitors, which I've already discussed. Then very, very important for you to keep in mind when new value startups is looking at intangible assets, tangible assets, because as a valuer, valuing land, building, assets, furniture and fixtures is not very difficult, but valuing intangible, as I said, is very, very difficult. So until unless you do a complete in-depth study of all this, you will not be able to do the valuation. So to make effective decision in IPO, investors go through data regarding all financials, assets, liabilities, revenues, and performance factors, and they are analyzed properly. And after it's analyzed, a prospectus is made and filed with the stock exchange, so that they are able to go for an IPO. So valuation of startups entering IPO becomes crucial, as the valuation will be subject to public. One thing you need to keep in mind when a startup goes gets its company valued and it doesn't intend to go public, the valuation would be a valuation game between the promoters and, let us say, the investors. Okay? And you will have the valuation professional. But once it goes public, the valuation is subjected to what we can say greater scrutiny and public scrutiny, and the valuation can be questioned by analysts, experts. So one should be very careful. If you are involved in the valuation of an IPO, you should, as a valuation professional, you should be very careful while making the right kind of interpretations or projections. So after the prospectus is made and filed with the stock exchange, then it becomes an IPO. And as I said, some of the IPOs have been listed at a discount of 9%, and almost 38,000 crores of investor wealth has been wiped out. That's something very bad. Coming to investment banker, role of investment banker. Investment bankers play a very important role in valuation of startups. So they are the people who can decide what could be the price of a new issue, whether it's equity or debt, and they assist companies to get themselves valued. But at the same time, not only assist the company, they also help in identifying buyers for these new issues. So the role of an investment banker is very important. Today, there are exciting opportunities for chartered accountant investment banking. So those of the young CAs who want to take up investment banking as a career, definitely it's good. So basically, investment bankers are referred to as the market makers. They perform the functions of both a buyer and a seller. They assist the startup in raising funds. They assist the startups to find buyers also. So investment banks are experts calculating what the worth of the business is. Today, there are so many investment banks in the country who can tell you what is the value of the business. They are able to predict what will be the turnover, what will be the revenues, what happens to the value of the company in different scenarios, and they are able to come out with different financial models. So these investment bankers come out with a financial model that can capture the most important fixed and variable components. What if the turnover is so much? What if the demand is less? They can come out with multiple models. Investment bankers play a very important role. Coming to the role of SEBI, SEBI, as you know, plays a very important role in regulating all the markets operating in the capital market. Its intention is to protect the investor. That is what SEBI was set up as a regulator. And of course, it aims at developing the capital markets by enforcing various rules and regulations. And recently, SEBI has proposed the limit. They have put a cap. The money raised by startups through an IPO, only a percentage of which can be used for buying new companies. That is, mergers and acquisitions by startup IPOs is now restricted. And today, Indian startups like Zomato, Paytm, Nykaa have raised a lot of money. Nykaa is a company that manufactures costumes and lipsticks and all these things. Double the value of the share was almost double. 1,000 rupees, I think it was listed. The share was issued, started listing at 2,000 rupees. Zomato also did extremely well, a lot of listing gains for the investors. So SEBI is interested in the protecting the investors' wealth. So basically, friends, valuation is a highly specialized field. We just can't get into it. You need to have the knowledge of finance, accounting, finance, and CA are the most ideal valuation professionals. And today, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has amended the rules. The criteria for becoming a registered valuer has been changed, and a CA degree is sufficient. And as a chartered accountant, you can become a registered valuer. And it's not mandatory for you to be a graduate to be a registered valuer. Just being a CA is sufficient. I think, Pankaj ji, I think you're aware that the ICA Registered Valuers Organization, a Section 8 company has been formed by the ICI to enroll and regulate registered valuers as members according to the Companies Act, Company Registered Valuer Valuation Rules. So the intention of this organization, that is a separate entity, RVO, is to maintain high ethical and professional standard in the regulation of its members. So if you're a valuation professional, you have to get yourself registered with this and undergo a training course, educational course for this valuation exam. It comes with a 50 hours educational course, certificate of practice, continuous education program. All this is part of the IBBI, valuation exam that has become very popular, and we find a lot of CAs, practicing CAs, have taken up this valuation because this would help them to, have the eligibility to value startups. So if you have to value a startup, you need to be a valuation professional. You need to register with the ICA, Registered Valuers Organization, or some other organizations that are authorized by the IBBI, and then take up this course and pass the exam. So valuation is a great opportunity for you. So those of you chartered accountants who are viewing it, I think you should, take up this particular valuation exam. Friends, more or less, I've been speaking for the last 75 minutes, non-stop. I can only say that the ecosystem is very vibrant, and the startup ecosystem, a lot of employment is being generated, and all of us have seen how the transformation has taken place. But only thing is, we as chartered accountants should advise our startups as to how they should go about raising funds, how they should use it judiciously, how they should maintain all the records properly, because if they are subjected to a due diligence, that will help them to ensure that everything is maintained well. And when we talk about other clients who want to make investment in startups, let us say you have a client who's got 50 lakhs who want to invest in a startup, he'll ask you, Charmi, can I invest 50 lakhs in my retirement funds in a startup? You should be in a position to tell the client whether to invest, not to invest, and you can charge a fee for that. Okay. So it is absolutely essential for you to guide your clients if they want to make investment in startups. And if they want to make investment in IPOs of startups also, you can, say whether the valuations are realistic. So what is important is that you could also become a valuation professional, a big time activity. Today there are plenty of opportunities for valuation professionals. Investment bankers are appointing young CAs for doing this valuation, because the moment you're a registered valuer, the investment banker will hire you and they will make you develop all the financial models. As I said, different financial models has to be developed by the investment bankers, and for this I have worked with a lot of investment bankers, and I find that it's only the CAs. Generally, in any investment banking team, you have MBAs, you have chartered accountants, you have company secretaries. But friends, let me tell you very frankly, all the work on developing models is done by a CA. The MBAs are more involved in strategy, trying to sort of close the deal. But from the investment banker's perspective, you will have a team of people, chartered accountants, company secretaries, MBAs. But it's the chartered accountants in the team who are involved in actually doing all the figure work. So what I would like to say is an exciting area, startup valuation. If you are keen to get into it, yes, you need to have a degree. And in addition to getting a degree, you need to get experience. You should work with an investment banker. And of course, you could offer consulting service. Any startup wants to raise funds, they can come to you and you can guide them. You can help them to develop a business model. So these are some of the things which I thought I would share with you today. And I will be very happy to take any questions from the audience. I really do not know how many members are viewing this program, but yes, definitely I think Sony would be having the figures.
Maybe more than 1100.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, more than 1100 are.
So now I would be ready to take up any questions from the audience.
Yes, sir. Chase the vision, not the money. The money will end up following you. Your vision will create value.
Your voice is echoing, Charmi.
Yes, sir.
Your voice is echoing.
Your voice
Sorry?
is echoing, Charmi. Echo. There is an echo in your voice.
Hello.
So reading
Now is it proper?
No, Charmi, are you reading out the questions from the portal?
There is a question in the portal that whether the presentation will be shared afterwards.
Yes, I think I will share it with the committee secretariat, and the committee secretariat can share it with all the participants. That's no problem.
The second question is, please suggest some good books to learn about startup journey of companies and valuation.
There are a lot of books available in the market, on startup, valuation of startups. It all depends on your interest, and any good, you can buy it online. But personally, if you ask me, one big advantage what we have chartered accountants is that we are able to collect a lot of information coming in the media, coming in many business magazines. But yes, there are a lot of books available, but offhand I'm not able to give you the names. But on startup, there are a lot of books and many success stories by the startup founders are there. Even if you take the startup story of Infosys, all that has Infosys was a startup. It was started in a garage. Today they employ more than 3 lakh to 4 lakh employees. So many such stories are there in the form of books.
The next question is, why and how did the investment banker fail so miserably in the case of Paytm IPO?
Yeah, this is something that is being debated. And as chartered accountants, definitely yes, we are all concerned because this is something related to valuation. We really do not know who exactly has valued this Paytm. But yes, as I told you, when valuation done, so many factors are there. prior data is not available. They would have estimated certain revenues, different financial models would have been, but somewhere they failed. Very rightly, as the question, the person who asked, the member who asked the question, the investment banker has failed. Here, in fact, SEBI being a market regulator, when the prospectus is filed with them, it is their job also to do the due diligence. Now SEBI has said that they will look into it, and we need to wait and see. But I feel the valuation needs to mature in our country as such, because today what is happening is no one is bothered about how it is valued. There are so much accumulated losses in the balance sheet, hardly any revenues, but astronomical valuations. If you ask me, I never invested in any of these, IPOs. Even though many of my friends invested, they told me, "Why don't you invest? Why don't you get some listing aids?" But my conscience, being a chartered accountant, being a finance professional, didn't permit me. I said, "Fine, I might not make money in this IPO, but let me not invest," because I was not convinced about the way these companies are being valued. So what I mean to say is that it's all driven by how you look at the company. As chartered accountants, all of us are cautious, right? We are very conservative in our approach. We don't mind not making any money because we know that somewhere something is not okay. So we have found that many gullible investors have lost money. What has happened in Paytm? Okay, you have, let us say, engineer has invested, a software engineer has invested 10,000 rupees, and over a cup of coffee, he would have told, "I've invested in Paytm with clicks, I learned 10,000 rupees." The person listening to him immediately goes to the portal and buys. So it's like a herd mentality. So I've come across a lot of my relatives sitting in small towns in Karnataka investing in Paytm, big time, in all the family members, like how we used to invest in the IPOs those days, fill up the application forms and in all the family members' name, get the allotment. Something similar to that, people applied for these issues. But today, having burned their fingers, now they have become very cautious. And in fact, I think all of you would have read in the media, many startups who plan to go Paytm have deferred their plans of raising money. So it's very, very difficult, and until unless the investor is convinced, he will not go for such investments and lose money. But yes, some regulation is required. SEBI should try to see, recommend to the government what sort. But right now, they've said, SEBI has said that they'll not look into the valuation because the valuation is done by a valuation professional. But yes, this is a matter that will be subject to debate, public scrutiny. Regulators and the government will come out with some mechanism to see that the valuations are more fair. But finally, as an investor, whether it's you or Pankaj or Ganesh, we have to be cautious and careful when we are making the investments. That is the message I would like to say.
So, sir, what is one big reason of significant fall in price of Paytm, and whether at present Paytm is overvalued or not?
Yeah, that is exactly what I was trying. We do not, I have not gone into this particular valuation as such, but yes, something has gone wrong that will be debated. Experts, the analysts will look into it. Maybe question of time, we will come to know. Even SEBI also might come out with some clarification as to how exactly, because once the prospectus is filed with SEBI just can't accept the papers and just go ahead. They should also have to do some due diligence. We'll have to wait for some time.
Sir, can you please explain what is exactly meant by pre-series, series A, series B, etc.? Where can we get to read all about this terminology?
Yeah, Series A funding, Series B funding is all terms. There's nothing in the statute about this. It's just that the different rounds of funding. They're more popular in US, United States of America. Series A funding, Series B funding. It is just nothing but different phases of funding.
So that's all from the question from participants, but there are few questions which I have compiled if you want
Please go
to
ahead.
answer that. So valuation models are different from different business models. So online companies like Amazon are valued differently based on different valuations models. So won't it be hyped in comparison to other companies which are not going online? Maybe every time the valuation of the online company would be higher than the company which do not do online business.
Yeah, see, when there are many valuation methods that could be adopted by a registered valuer, discounted value, it could be market multiples, it could be EBITDA. But whatever valuation model that has been followed, generally what is done by the valuation professional is that he will, out of the 6 or 7 modes of valuation, he'll choose what is most ideally suited for that business. And when he goes about valuing, they would take an average of 2 or 3 of the models that have been applied. So basically, you will not have one valuation for all type. For online, it might be different, or for an offline, for a brick and mortar business, it might be different. But the valuer has got a discretion to choose the valuation best suited for that particular industry.
The next is in startup efficiency should be given weightage, or the speed at which the startup should work should be given weightage to.
Could you repeat the question, Charmi?
In a startup, efficiency should be given a weightage, or the speed at which the startup should chase the market should be given weightage to.
Both are important. They need to grow fast. They need to also be efficient in their services. I think both are very important.
There are many questions coming on from the participants right now. So going back to them, why and how did the investor, what is it mandatory that after IPO the company should necessarily make again some? This question is incomplete, so let's go to the next question. Should not valuer is also held accountable? There need to be some rules laid down as small investors keep faith in this institution, and if they fail, SEBI to monitor who will do it.
Absolutely
So
right.
maybe
The valuation professional has to be careful. He cannot just give some fancy valuation. Like the CA Institute, how we have a disciplinary mechanism, even in the valuation organization, RVO, registered valuation organization, if he has given a value arbitrarily without documenting the way he has gone about valuing, action can be taken against him. They could be blacklisted also. In fact, in banks, if you see, valuation professionals don't do a proper valuation are blacklisted. That is a system that they are following in the public sector banks. Where generally, banks have a panel of valuers for valuing land, building, and many a time we find the valuation reports, valuation reports are not okay when we want to realize the value of the asset. And that is when we blacklist those firms that are doing valuation. We write to the respective organization which has registered them. So yes, valuation professionals have to be careful. Like how as chartered accountants when do an attest function, we are very cautious and careful. Even the valuation professionals, when they are attributing a value to a business enterprise and they're doing a business valuation, they need to justify, because that can be challenged by anyone, by investors, by regulators, by anyone. So they need to be answerable. I think there'll be some regulation that would happen, additional regulation. We will have to wait. These are all new experiences that all of us are seeing. Such astronomical valuations. Of course, I've not seen in the last 30 years of my career as a CA. If you take a company like Nykaa, that 1,000 rupees got valued at 2,000. Similar company in the same space, hardly the valuation of these companies are so less. Such established companies like ITC or any of these companies, or Hindustan Lever, they are having same product profile, but we find that the value of this shares are very, very high. They're not at all comparable.
going on to the next question. Star Health IPO received tepid response, probably because of the pricing.
Was the valuation done by Mr. Jhunjhunwala sir? Was the backing to the IPO?
Which is the name of the company?
Star Health IPO.
Okay, Star Health IPO.
Star Health IPO received tepid response, probably because of the pricing was the valuation done by Mr. Jhunjhunwala.
No, I don't
I
think
think
so.
he's
Basically, for any startup public issue to be successful, one individual will not be in a position to sort of influence the investors at large. Maybe the investors' appetite was poor because after the Paytm fiasco, I think this came after the Paytm, right? IPO, if I'm not mistaken. So they became cautious. They may have thought that why
Sir,
invest
it
money.
listed today. It came after Paytm and it has been listed today.
No, this one
Star Health listed today, sir.
today. That is after the Paytm, right?
Yeah, after Paytm. It came after the fiasco in the Paytm IPO.
And what is the listing of this Star Health Insurance?
Come again, sir?
What is the price at which it has been listed today?
It was around 2100 if I'm not wrong.
And what was the issue price, Pankaj?
Just a minute, sir. I'll just get. I'd never track IPOs, so I don't know.
No,
Uh,
what I could say, Pankaj,
no,
is
sir.
that
Sorry, 906. It was
what that is
listed.
the issue price, is it?
Today it was 900, so it was 7 rupees up. So maybe around 900 was its rate.
Okay. So what I am trying to say is
Sir, honestly speaking, many investors, they were expecting that since it is a company in which RJ is invested,
correct.
so its valuation might whop up and maybe it might go twice, thrice. So that could be
Correct. I
one
agree.
of the reason. And many would not have invested or applied in IPO because of the panic situation in the stock market in last few days, and maybe because of the what has happened with the Paytm. So probably
Yeah,
that could be reason.
predominantly Paytm valuation is what has impacted the investors. That is the reason many companies went back and they've decided to list later. But here, even though people felt that it might list high, it has not listed. The investors have become cautious.
Yeah, Charmi, over to you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is the fee of the merchant banker linked to the valuation that they recommend?
No, 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 Charmi.
That's all for the questions from the participant side.
Fine. I think we could conclude now.
Okay. So, after your session, sir, I could only recollect one thing that if you chase the vision and not the money will end up following your startup. Your vision will create valuation, which is very well explained by you, sir. So, to formally present vote of thanks, we have with us CA Ganesh Bhale Rao, Treasurer, Aurangabad branch of WIRC of ICI. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Am I audible, Charmi?
Hey, audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's really a great pleasure for me to give a vote of thanks. I, CA Ganesh Bhalerao, on behalf of Aurangabad branch of WIRC of ICI, thankful to CA Raghu sir, past president of ICI, for guiding us on startup and valuations. I am also thankful to the Committee on Management Accounting of ICAI for arranging such a nice webinar for the members. I am also thankful to CA Charmi Shah, Preeti moderator, for coordinating the program. I am also thankful to the chairman for giving me an opportunity to give the vote of thanks, and also thankful to all the participants for their patient listening. Thank you all. Thank you. Over to you, Cham.
Thank you, Pankaj ji. Nice to meet you. Ganesh, Balerao, and Chami for an excellent coordination.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Good night to all of you.
Yeah.
Just when the caterpillar thought its life was over, it became a butterfly. Similarly, this session gave a new horizons in the valuation and startup arena. With this note, I bid farewell to our all participants and the panelists. Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chami.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.